Over 1.1 million jobs were lost in 2025. Amazon cut 14,000 jobs, Microsoft over 15,000, Salesforce over 4,000 jobs, and AI was a frequently cited reason. But guys, don't just take my word for it. Listen to what the CEO of JP Morgan Chase says. Jamie Dimon says it will eliminate jobs. People should stop sticking their heads in the sand. Amazon Senior Vice President Amit Agarwal said layoffs were primarily intended to eliminate layers within the organization to help Amazon operate with greater agility in a, quote, fast evolving AI-driven business landscape. Listen, it doesn't just end there. Listen to what CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff, said after deploying a bunch of AI agents in customer service. He says, I've reduced the customer service from 9,000 heads to about 5,000 because I need less heads. Guys, it is clear that 2025 was a very, very tumultuous year for employees, for businesses, and AI is creating massive disruption, and it's not going to stop. It is not going to stop. But my friends, there is good news. And according to a survey from Teneo, 2026 may actually be a boom for AI, investment, returns, and for jobs. And today, we're going to cover the report. We're going to cover where the opportunities are. Because I want you to remain relevant, respected, and financially free in 2026 and beyond. So make sure you like and subscribe. I'll be bringing you fresh videos 6 days a week, as I have in the past, as I will in the future, because guys, this report is pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting. Let's get into it. So this report, this survey from Teneo, what they did is they surveyed over 350 public company CEOs, over $1 billion in revenue. It was the minimum cut to make this survey. And over 400 investors who represent over $19 trillion in assets. So they took some big dogs, people who are really, really involved in the field, and they surveyed them. And the statistics, the data is really, really interesting, guys. So this is interesting. So 82% of CEOs expect to see huge investments in APAC and India to rise. In fact, by 2036, these CEOs expect India to surpass China in strategic importance due to its role in the demand engine and the talent powerhouse. And I think this is really well represented. I posted a video here. I'll post a link to it here. In Microsoft committing over $17 billion to infrastructure and data center development in India, and a commitment to upskill 20 million Indian workers by 2030. India is going to be a big deal. It's already a big deal. It is only going to get bigger. So pay attention, guys. And I just want to highlight here for all my Americans, you're not just competing with your neighbors next door. Even if this H-1B visa program is, if these changes stick, you're still going to be competing on a global level. You're not just competing against your neighbors, you're competing against the entire world. I don't see any reason why that will stop. And frankly, I don't necessarily see a reason why it should stop. I read The 4-Hour Workweek a few years ago by Tim Ferriss, and basically what he says is, I can hire people overseas for a fraction of the cost. Anyway, go watch that video that I recorded on the Microsoft investment into India. I think it'll be pretty enlightening for you. Let's go over some of these additional stats here, because guys, there's going to be some tremendous opportunity in 2026 and beyond. So 68% of the CEOs plan to increase AI investment. They plan to increase it. They are not slowing down. 84% of these CEOs predict a positive return will take longer than 6 months. Now, here's where things get interesting. 53% of the investors expect a return in less than 6 months. So you've got a little bit of a discrepancy between what when the CEOs expect return on investment to be and when the investors expect return on investment to be. And I think this highlights a little bit of a bias, because, if you're an investor, what do you want to do? You want to go and promise the world. You want to tell, other investors, hey, invest with our fund. We expect to get a return in less than 6 months. This AI boom is happening. We're going to get you all your money back. It's going to be amazing. The CEOs are being very cautious not to overpromise and underdeliver. where the majority of them saying, hey, we're going all in on AI. We're investing millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into AI, but just don't expect a return right away. Give me a little bit of time to sort through this. And I think that's a more responsible approach. Regardless, you can see there's a little bit at odds between the guys that are trying to get you to invest your money into these companies, and the CEOs who are going to have to execute on it. So I think that's an interesting thing to look at there. 67% of CEOs expect AI adoption to increase entry-level hiring in 2026. I thought this stat was shocking, quite frankly. 67% of CEOs expect AI adoption to increase entry-level hiring in 2026, because from what I can see across the market, and something we've been talking about a lot, is that it seems like AI implementation is cutting off the first rung of the career ladder. Because the problem is, I was talking to my neighbor about this earlier yesterday. Her daughter is graduating from college with her bachelor's degree in communication and marketing. And, the problem that I laid out for her was that, well, the problem for college kids is, getting fresh out of college, you're not getting hired. By the way, unemployment numbers for college kids are way up. I recorded a couple of videos. I'll post a link to one of those videos here. The problem is these college kids are book smart and not street smart, okay? And, well, okay, Mark, what does that mean? Well, it means that AI is incredibly book smart. So you give a person who's wise and has seen some stuff access to AI, they're going to be able to execute and kind of find the flaws and use the book smarts. I'll give you an example. If you're a paralegal, you're trying to get into the legal field, what do? You read a lot, you write a lot. And AI is really good at reading and writing, and then having someone put that information through their lens. I'll give you another example when it comes to vibe coding, and we've covered this a couple times on the channel. Any schmuck like me, for example, can use a vibe coding app like Replit or Lovable to develop some pretty good looking applications. The problem is, it's like the hot crazy chick, right? It looks good on the outside, but it's not fundamentally sound. So what you need a developer, a software engineer, someone who understands software to use AI to write the code, to build these apps, but also understand when things are broken, clean up the schema, the databasing, and all that good stuff, right? So I find it surprising that so many CEOs are saying, hey, we're about to have a boom in hiring. We're gonna hire a bunch of people. So I'm gonna be watching that very, very closely to see how that plays out. I think that is interesting because, again, I feel really bad for these college kids getting out of college. College unemployment rates are way up. Unemployment for kids under the age of 26, way up this year. And it's a big problem. It's a big problem. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. 58% of CEOs also expect an increase in senior leadership roles. I found that interesting too. So what's interesting about this survey is it's kind of like a complete opposite of what we saw in 2025. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. Oh, here's another stat here. Nearly 90% of CEOs say AI is helping their organization navigate disruption. So I kind of look at these stats, I kind of look at this data, and I'm thinking, like, what you guys are predicting for 2026 is very different than what we've been seeing in 2025. Why is that? Is it because you recognize that the public perception around AI and big companies is kind of starting to falter, that there's concern about the discrepancy between the haves and the have-nots, that this wealth gap is becoming a problem? Are you needing to change the narrative? The All In podcast is one of my favorite podcasts. I think they do a really good job of comparing and contrasting different ideas. And one of the things that's been really common over the past several episodes on the All In podcast is them saying, like, why do people not like AI? Why don't they like it? Well, it's because we're concerned. And by the way, I'm a huge fan of AI. If you're new to the channel here, I'm very excited about it. Lots of opportunity. But there's a public perception on AI that it's gonna take jobs, it's gonna usher in a new era of surveillance, mass chaos, nobody's gonna know what's true or false anymore. There's a lot of reasons, I think, to have some concern over AI. And anyway, that's been kind of a point of consternation. So I wonder if what's happening here is these billion-dollar publicly shared company CEOs are starting to say, it seems like people don't like it when we fire thousands of people and say we're going to use AI. The investors like it, but the people don't like it. And, they're kind of trying to navigate this interesting tightrope between keeping regulators happy and keeping public perception happy and keeping investors happy. So it's kind of tricky. So when I look at these stats and I look at this prediction from Teneo, in these top CEOs and these top investors and how they see 2026 play out, it's very interesting. I take the stats a little bit with a grain of salt, but I think it's important, guys, that we're paying attention to what's happening at a high level. Because what does this mean for you guys? If you want to get hired in 2026, if you want to grow your business and evolve your business in 2026, there are some really key things that we need to keep in mind. And you have to understand at its core level that the problems that we're solving today are not going to be the same problems that we're solving in the future. There's going to be new problems to solve. There's going to be new bottlenecks. And I'll give you a great example. I was reading an article in Forbes earlier today, and it's kind of a good breakdown, and they laid out a really good example of AI, right? So you think about typists before word processors came out, and why were they valuable? Well, they would type without making, at a high level of accuracy without errors. Guys, by the way, you didn't used to just be able to hit the undo button and the delete button and the space button. You had to actually go in with like a little whiteout pen and clean up errors and typos that way. Can you imagine how much of a pain in the butt that was? Holy cow. Regardless, when word processing came out, it didn't mean that you're not going to have people typing anymore. It just means that the constraints are different. The problems are different. You know what I'm saying? You're still typing, but the constraints have been changed. And I think that's a good illustration of what's going to happen across every industry is the constraints are going to change. Guys, AI is not going anywhere. If you can see what's happening here, these companies are doubling, tripling, quadrupling down. They are not going to stop or give up on AI investment. And frankly, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because technology makes us more efficient. It's going to create new opportunities, and it's just the way of the world, guys. Things change. Things don't stay the same. I know it's uncomfortable. I know people are scared to hear that, but that's the way it goes. And I think it will create more opportunities. I was just driving downtown the other day, and I was like, man, I'm so glad I have Google Maps and I have GPS. Because before that, I grew up in an era where we had to use maps. I remember MapQuest. You remember MapQuest? That was even pretty good, but I used to have a road atlas. I used to drive around South Florida taking pictures of homes for home insurance. I worked for State Farm. And we didn't have a GPS. I had a huge road map, a huge road atlas, and I had to kind of figure out where addresses were on the grid and find them. GPS is amazing. So, you might say, well, what about all the map makers? What about them? Things change. Things change is the point I'm trying to say here. And I think that, myself and you need to be thinking about how AI is a key tool in development, because as big companies, as clients become more and more reliant and more demanding when it comes to AI intelligence and AI skills and AI literacy, you're going to need to adapt to. Otherwise, you're just not going to be relevant anymore. That's the harsh truth. So embrace AI as a key tool in your development. All of your data, your daily tasks should be seen through the lens of how is AI going to impact this role now, and how will AI impact this role in the future? I'm going to give you a couple quick examples of how I'm seeing this. So I'm in marketing. I have a few different clients I serve, but my primary role is as a chief marketing officer for a decently sized SaaS company. We do Amazon optimization. And, we're using AI already for a lot of different tasks, from copywriting, repurposing, strategy, data analysis, all kinds of stuff like that. We're even looking at using AI to do Google ad optimization, all that tedious stuff, going in there, checking keywords, removing keywords, adding keywords. We're looking at using AI to optimize a lot of that. That's kind of what's happening now. But we're also thinking about the future. And, as we expect AI to become more and more robust, I see what Microsoft is doing with Microsoft 360 and how you have all of your first-party data from your calendars to your meeting notes, to your frequently asked questions, to all of your traffic and analytics data, all that data coming together in one place, and using the AI Microsoft Copilot to kind of assess and give you informed information based on all that data. When I see where things are going in that realm, we're making a huge push within our organization to make sure that all of our first-party data is on point. We're doing data cleanup. We're making sure that the team is all aware of, okay, we need to make sure this information is correct, and this information is correct, and this information is correct, because that's all going to inform our AI moving forward in 2026 and beyond. So think about, how is AI relevant now? How will it be important in the future, and how can we leverage that? And guys, publicly embrace. If you're the guy on LinkedIn who's saying you don't like AI, it's gonna be really hard for companies to hire you when we go into this hiring boom. They're gonna be looking for people that are gonna help them achieve their goals. At the end of the day, my daughter the other day asked why some jobs get paid more than others, and I said, it's because you get paid based on the problems that you solve. And the problem that a lot of these big companies are gonna have right now, the problems that your clients have right now, is they wanna use more AI. They're investing, guys, billions and billions of dollars, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars into AI. If you're gonna be, you gotta be aligned. You gotta go in there and say, I'll help you solve your problem. This is how I'll help you solve it. This is how I've helped solve it in the past. This is what I'm willing to do. Go in with vision and be public about it. Share posts on LinkedIn. If you have a personal web page, update your personal brand that you're on top of this. It's really, really important. And at the end of the day, guys, it's gonna be about who you know. I've said this time and time again. Take some time, call some people, make sure that you're publicly, communicating and connecting with people that are gonna help you. It's gonna be, I think, more important than people realize is the people you know are gonna get you hired. We actually covered this at length in a video recently. I'll post a link to it here. There's all these ghost jobs going up there, and people are using AI agents to apply for jobs. You've got a job listing, and what's happening is you have these job boards that are completely flooded with AI-generated applications, AI-generated job listings. It's gonna be really hard to stand out in that kind of sea of job listings. So it's gonna be about who you know. It's just, I know it's gonna be, I know it's not always comfortable to walk into a networking room where you don't know anyone, but go in, collect names, collect numbers, make sure you have a CRM, or at the very least a spreadsheet where you can keep adding names, numbers, hobbies, where do they live, what are they interested in, what field are they in. Start building your database of contacts now, and don't let them slip through the cracks. I have, I think, I started podcasting very frequently about 6 years ago. I have almost 10,000 people in my database. So I know that if I lose one job or I lose this job, these are all the things that I'm doing, is the point I'm trying to make. Public profile, learning, testing new things, only taking on projects where I get to think forward, building up a robust network, calling people when I maybe don't feel like it. All these things are gonna pay off, guys. These are things that I'm doing. These are things that I would encourage you to do, because we are about to hit a boom in hiring. And if you wanna stand out, you're gonna need a strategy. And I hope this strategy helps you out. Guys, if you like today's video, smash the like, smash subscribe, 6 days a week, fresh video. And if you like today's video, definitely like yesterday's video. I'll post a link to it here where we cover in depth a lot of the changes that happened to H-1B visa program and Trump's AI executive order, which is gonna kind of fundamentally change a lot of things. Go check it out. I'll see you there, boys. Peace.